There's an interesting scene in an old Polish film released in 1940 called Rothschild's Shares in Waterloo. In the film, the wealthy Baron Nathan Rothschild tries to infiltrate the English aristocracy, befriend them, and even buy their favor, but is always met with a firm refusal. How is that possible? After all, it's Rothschild himself. It is precisely this interesting fact that I will tell you about in this video. To help you easily understand this topic, we need to clarify two concepts: old money and new money. Old money refers to wealthy families and dynasties that often possess not only financial but also political power. Traditionally, in the U.S., old money was considered to be those who had held prominent positions in society and politics for several generations. In many cases, such dynasties were formed and gained influence even before or during the American Revolution, specifically in the mid to late 18th century. Today, this concept is applied more broadly and is used to describe those who did not earn their money or rise to the elite on their own, but rather inherited their wealth and status. In Europe, this primarily refers to the black aristocracy, influential families that have ruled European countries for centuries. The most classic example is the Rothschild family, which established financial houses throughout Europe starting in the 18th century and maintained its wealth for over 2 centuries. The Liechtenstein family, dating back to the 12th century, is also considered a model of the old European aristocracy. Who, then, are the new money? These are people who became wealthy during their lifetime, rather than being born into a wealthy family or inheriting a title, capital, or wealth. These are people who built their wealth through hard work. They are the first generation of dynasties who founded their own businesses. A classic example of new money is the famous UFC fighter Conor McGregor. This guy has reached unprecedented heights in sports and business. He is an example of the first generation of a wealthy family. If his descendants don't squander the wealth and the business, then over time they may move into the old money category. Other clear examples of new money include Rihanna, Kim Kardashian, and Justin Bieber. Now, let's return to the fact from the film about Rothschild. Why didn't the prominent British aristocrats of that era accept him into their club? It's very, very simple. They understood that he was a typical representative of new money, an arrogant, conceited upstart who had recently come into wealth. Although Nathan Rothschild was already the second generation of the Rothschild family after Meyer Amschel, that was clearly not enough to gain access to the old money club. Old money doesn't like it when such upstarts flaunt their wealth. That's typical of new money, those who have recently become wealthy. Old money comes from wealthy, aristocratic families, and they don't need to prove anything to anyone. They view luxury and wealth as the norm, not a privilege. Often at social gatherings, young millionaires talk about how much they've earned, where they've traveled, where they've vacationed, and who they know. But among old money, this elicits a barely perceptible smile, one that is noticed by other members of the club. This is the first reason why old money knows you're not one of them. If you constantly talk about your business successes, earnings, expensive purchases, the luxury cars you've bought, and the high-end hotels where you've stayed, that's the first and clearest sign that you're not old money. Old money people don't talk about these things. Those who need to know already know how their financial affairs are managed. The next sign that you're not from old money is your clothing style. How does the new money clothing style differ from old money? Old money prefers understated yet refined luxury in clothing. You won't see flashy, bright logos of famous brands or a pile of gold and rhinestones that catch the eye on old money. Such people often dress at tailors who have been making custom suits for their clients for several generations. They prefer items that will hold up well for years, rather than going out of style after a season. For example, John Davidson Rockefeller, founder of the Rockefeller dynasty, wore the same jacket for many years. Even when the sleeves were worn through at the elbows, he chose to patch those areas rather than buy a new jacket. This is a classic example of old money behavior. Could Grandpa Rockefeller have bought a new jacket? Absolutely, but he didn't need to. Old money values something entirely different. You'll never see members of old money wearing oversized t-shirts, flared pants, tight-fitting lace tops, or bright acid colors in their clothing. When it comes to colors, they prefer white, cream, beige, and dark blue. Old money prefers natural fabrics in clothing: cashmere, tweed, cotton, wool, and linen. You will never see them wearing synthetic t-shirts. Another striking difference between old money and new money is their choice of clothing accessories. The aristocracy prefers classic watches, stud earrings, pearl jewelry, headbands, and a sports headband or scarf. Typical examples of old money in fashion include Princess Diana, John and Jacqueline Kennedy, Grace Kelly, King Carl III, and Prince William. Representatives of new money are the complete opposite. They are not shy about flaunting their wealth and status through their clothing, accessories, and lifestyle. New money prefers clothing, accessories, and shoes featuring bold logos from famous fashion houses. For example, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Versace, and Chanel. You'll see an abundance of gold jewelry, crystals, and gemstones on them. These people strive to surround themselves with expensive items that highlight their financial success. New money individuals may invest in designer items as well as other aspects of life that highlight their status, such as expensive cars and vacations in exclusive locations. Examples of famous people sometimes classified as new money include the Kardashian-Jenner family, Justin Bieber, Rihanna, Cristiano Ronaldo, Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos. To summarize, the new money style differs from the old money aesthetic. While old money is associated with understated elegance passed down through generations, new money is a bold, vibrant, and often ostentatious expression of success. If you've watched movies about old aristocratic families, you've likely seen their family trees. All family members know their progenitor, the person from whom the family tree begins, the very foundation of the family lineage. Typically, this ancestor was at the origin of the family business, which was then passed down to descendants generation after generation, provided, of course, that there was someone to pass it on to. For example, if we take the famous French royal dynasty of the Capetians, its founder and the first king of this dynasty was Hugh Capet. As you can see, members of old money can always say who their distant ancestors were and what they did. At least, they can say this about their main branch. The new money cannot boast of this. At most, they can recall their grandfather or grandmother, perhaps a great-grandfather or great-grandmother. They know nothing more. Moreover, the new money do not attempt to study their family tree or find their ancestors. They are content as they are. Old money pays close attention to this and regularly invests in uncovering more information about its distant ancestors. A family lineage can be semi-mystical or legendary. For example, the famous banker John Pierpont Morgan claimed that his ancestor was the notorious Caribbean pirate Henry Morgan, who lived in the 17th century. Another example is the legendary Frankish king Meravius, the first king of the Merovingian dynasty, whose existence is still debated by historians. But whatever the case may be, for the descendants of the Merovingian dynasty, he is the progenitor. The third sign by which the old money will easily realize that you are not one of them is a lack of knowledge about your ancestors, who they were, and what they did. You might be surprised, but the old money paid great attention to developing physical strength and agility. After all, only a person who keeps their body in shape can maintain high performance. And this is always necessary for members of wealthy dynasties, since managing the family's affairs requires great strength and energy. It is impossible to be productive while being physically weak, so the aristocracy was required to undergo appropriate training. For example, in raising children, the aristocracy practiced gymnastic exercises daily, horseback riding, fencing, swimming, or rowing. In military academies, physical training was far more rigorous for the cadets. Demonstrating physical strength and endurance was a kind of aristocratic prestige. Fashionable pastimes, hunting and horseback riding, required good physical condition. In addition, every aristocrat was obligated to defend his honor in a duel at any moment. Boys were often taught to hunt from adolescence onward, though you might rightly ask, why? After all, they already had everything. But this was a matter of upbringing. The aristocracy considered it important to instill a hunter's spirit in boys, even if the family was fabulously wealthy. This is well illustrated in the series The Crown, where princes are regularly taken to hunting grounds as teenagers to hunt their first deer or roe deer. Although representatives of new money can easily lead a similar lifestyle and engage in sports, here the differences between old and new money may be minimal, since everyone understands the benefits of sports. Old money has always placed great importance on education. The widespread belief that the children of kings and aristocrats live in carefree idleness is the greatest misconception about the workings of high society. It is simply impossible to become a social model without a strict, almost Spartan upbringing. It is for this very reason that the children of the old money were sent to study at elite schools in both the old and new worlds, so that they might gain knowledge and become acquainted with other children of the elite, with whom they would frequently interact later in life. Great attention is paid to the study of foreign languages and the rules of speech. Beautiful and literate speech was highly valued. A true aristocrat could hurl a whole barrage of barbs and insults at another person, but they had to be cloaked in impeccably polite language. This required considerable knowledge of literature and familiarity with the clichés and obligatory polite phrases accepted in high society. An aristocrat had to express himself appropriately in different social settings, for example, when interacting in a peasant environment. This does not mean that he could stoop to vulgarities and profanity, but simple speech was quite acceptable. Contrary to many misconceptions, old money teaches its children not only financial literacy, how to run a business, how to evaluate company metrics. A great deal of time is devoted to studying the world around them: mathematics, physics, chemistry, and geography. It is the old money that can boast a wealth of knowledge, unlike the new money, which cannot always shine with such knowledge. Among the new money, one often encounters people who, in their time, did not even finish college, let alone think about university at all. And this is yet another reason why old money can always spot new money. A member of the elite need only talk to a representative of new money for 10 minutes on a wide variety of topics to understand who they are dealing with. What other differences between old money and new money do you know of? Write in the comments.